I noticed when I bought my Mark 1 Countryman that the headlining was a bit stained, and then when I pulled down the sun visor, there started to get seed debris come out from above, and I'd already had to remove 2 mouse nests, and so I thought, well, there's probably another one above the headlining. So a bit of a daunting task to take out the headlining. I had a look in the Haynes restoration manual, and it didn't tell me which part of the headlining to take out first. It comes in 2 halves. I started with the back. The first thing to do is to take out the interior light, making sure that you take note of which colour wires go to which points on the fitting. And then I started to work the headlining loose by prying it away from the edges of the roof and putting in pegs just to hold it off the ridge line that there is that it sits onto. It was then that I discovered that the rear of the roof is held on using screws, as you can see here. When I pull away the front section, you can see the screws at the front corners of the rear section of the headlining. So I took those out, but then it became apparent that it was the front that needed to come out first. So when I started to move the back, the front came with it. So it hooks together with 3 hooks on the frame above the headlining. So I had to take the front out first. When I did get it out, sure enough, there was another mouse nest, so that needed clearing away. Fortunately, none of the occupants were there, but the Mini had been in storage for a couple of decades at least, so not surprising that it had some rodents in there. I also checked the wiring whilst I was there. You can see here the hooks on the rear section of the headlining. This is where they go into the front. So when I was ready to replace the headlining, I started with the rear, putting the headlining onto the rails, but making sure that it lined up with the screw holes, and I just put a little tape to show where the screw holes were so that I could see that the holes were going to line up properly. Then I clipped it all back in and screwed the screws that hold the rear in. Then I offered up the front headlining and rested it on the sun visors at the front so that it wouldn't fall down. That meant I could lift the back up and push the wires through for the interior light. I also added an extra wire in at this point that goes to the rear doors, because I intend to put a switch onto the rear doors so that the interior light will come on when I open the rear doors. I then offered up the front headlining and pushed it forwards. Got to really pull hard to make those clips clip together above the headlining, but it does push in if you give it a good shove. So that was the job done. It wasn't quite as hard as I thought it was going to be in the end. I would say go for it. It's not going to be that difficult a job. If you do need to replace the headlining, I know that they are available. You cannot buy the frames anymore, so please look after the frames and try not to stretch them.